July 2026 was one of the most packed months for Canada's economy in years. The Bank of Canada made a major rate decision, a trade war escalated with brand new tariff threats, the recession narrative flipped on itself, the housing market wobbled, and this very morning, July 31st, Statistics Canada dropped fresh GDP data that changed the picture yet again. A lot happened, and if you're trying to make sense of it, the mortgage, the groceries, the job market, and all of it, this is the video you need. I'm breaking down every major economic story from July 2026 in plain English. Let's go. July 15th, Bank of Canada rate decision. Governor Tiff held the overnight rate steady at 2.25%, the fifth consecutive hold. No cut, no hike, just simple hold. But the statement that came with it was more interesting than the decision itself. The Bank of Canada upgraded its Q2 growth forecast to 2.5% annualized, a sharp rebound from the flat to negative first quarter. At the same time, they acknowledged inflation rose to 3.2% in May, driven almost entirely by energy costs by the Middle East conflict. But here's the key takeaway from RBC Economics. The bank dropped its earlier language about potentially needing to cut rates if trade worsens, and also dropped language about hiking if energy inflation spreads. In plain English, the Bank of Canada is now in a genuine wait-and-see mode, not panicking either direction. The next rate decision is September 2nd, and you should mark that in your calendar. For Canadians with variable mortgages, your rate isn't moving anytime soon. For those renewing, fixed rates are creeping up as bond yields rise, so shop around before you sign anything. Remember when everyone was calling Canada a technical recession back in May? 2 negative quarters, doom and gloom, including me of course, but it was what it was. July told a very different story. In April, GDP grew by 0.5%. The strongest monthly gain since July of last year. And this morning, July 31st, Statistics Canada confirmed GDP grew another 0.3% in May, beating expectations of just 0.1%. CIBC says the Canadian economy sprang back to life. The Bank of Canada is now projecting 2.5% annualized quarter 2 growth. Deloitte Canada's chief economist Don Ducharme said in plain English, "Beyond the headline numbers, there's little evidence a recession is underway. The rebound is being driven by oil and gas, manufacturing and construction, with 14 of Canada's 20 industrial sectors growing in April alone. Is everything fixed? Well, no. The economy is still running below potential. The unemployment is still elevated at 6.5%. The recession narrative is fading very fast." Just when Canada's economy was showing signs of recovery, the US threw a curveball. Late in July, President Trump signed an executive order threatening 50% tariffs on CUSMA compliant Canadian goods exported to the US. Let us again, CUSMA, a trade deal that's supposed to protect Canadian exports, is now being used as a target, not shield. The Trump administration is essentially saying even your compliant goods could face a 50% tax. This is a significant escalation. About 40% of Canadian businesses are already expecting to pass tariff-related cost increases onto the customers over the next year, and that number jumps to 65% among exporters, according to Statistics Canada. True North Mortgage founder Dan Eisner put it directly, another economic hit could be close at hand, coming at a time when the economy looks to be starting a mild recovery. Canada's Trade Minister LeBlanc was in Washington this week, pushing back on tariff pressure. The CUSMA renegotiations now has a new and more urgent dimension. This story is not over, and we will be covering every development right here. 2 things every Canadian cares about the most: jobs and housing. Here's where July left us both. Jobs. Canada added 18,000 jobs in June, a modest number, but it nudged the unemployment rate down to a 5-month low 6.5%. After losing over 100,000 private sector jobs earlier this year and then bouncing back 88,000 in May, the labor market is stabilizing. But Vanguard Canada described it best. Canada is in a low hire, low fire environment. Companies aren't laying off en masse, but they're also not opening the floodgates on hiring. If you're job hunting right now, especially if you're young or in a trade exposed sector, this market is still genuinely very tough. Housing. The picture is mixed. Home sales rose 5.5% month over month in May, encouraging. But in June, the housing market hit some bumps according to RBC, with activity softening again. CMHC's housing market outlook is cautious. Demand remains below historical averages, and fixed mortgage rates are likely to drift higher as long-term bond yields stay elevated. The bottom line on housing in July is that it's not crashing, but it's also not booming. Still waiting for the trade and rate picture to clarify before buyers commit in large numbers. Let's talk about the number that affects you most directly: inflation. Canada's headline inflation hit 3.2% in May, the highest since December 2023. Gasoline inflation up 32% year over year. That's the Strait of Hormuz oil shock falling directly into your pump prices. But here's what the Bank of Canada is watching: core inflation. Strip out energy and food, and core inflation is holding near 2%. That's the bank's target. That's why they're not hiking rates despite headline inflation at 3.2%. They say this as a supply shock, a temporary energy driven spike, not a broad overheating of the economy. The good news is that oil prices have pulled back from their peak in recent weeks, and bank projects inflation easing back towards 2% in 2027. The practical reality for you right now is that groceries, gas, and utilities are still elevated. Wage growth has outpaced inflation for more than 3 consecutive quarters nationally, but that's an average, and many Canadians aren't feeling it. Review your budget. The squeeze is real even if it's expected to ease. Here's July 2026 in 60 seconds. 1. Bank of Canada held at 2.25% on July 15th. Next decision is on September 2nd. 2. GDP bounced back. April up 0.5% and May up 0.3%. This morning, recession narratives are fading away. Number 3. The US threatened 50% tariffs on CUSMA compliant Canadian goods. Trade war is escalating. Number 5. Jobs stabilizing at 6.5% unemployment, but hiring is still frozen in many sectors. Number 5. Inflation at 3.2% headline, but core inflation is holding near 2%. Energy is the culprit. Canada in July is recovering, but not comfortable. Growing, but not yet confident. Resilient, but the trade war just got more complicated. That is your full Canadian economic update for July 2026. Every single story we covered today: the rate decision, the GDP bounce back, the new tariff threats, the job market, and inflation, I've covered in depth in separate videos on this channel. Links are in the description. Catch up on anything you missed. If this video gave you any insight into what happened in Canada's economic sector in July 2026, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. I'll see you in the next one.